we are back for another episode of In the Room.
In the room.
This is so exciting.
I love this.
And
This is fun.
It is, because we really just get to hang and we get to talk. And today we're talking about April Daniels' episode.
Woo, good Lord.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
It was like one of my favorite episodes though. Like I admired her strength.
Yes.
But there's one thing like I hold on to. I remember Angie asked her, did she ever question God why? Like she just asked, like, do you ever ask him like why it happened? And she was saying how like, no. She's like, I don't question God. Like I'm settled in like what happens. Like I trust God. But then what I loved about that moment is that she said, but I do have a son who does ask God questions. And I fully understand why he does that. And I think for me, it was like, we all experience things different ways. We respond to life differently, but also allowing grace and room for those who are not as strong in their faith and allowing them room to process. And I think like for me, that helps me in life. Like everybody's not going to process things the way that I process them.
Yeah.
They're not going to show up with the same amount of faith that I'll show up with, but allowing them room and space to ask questions and journeying with them through that. So that was like something I still hold to this day.
Yeah. And even for those that, if you haven't watched this episode on April Daniels, you're going to see a link for it afterwards. You have to watch it. But
It's
April
so
Daniels lost her husband, Big Shiz, through a tragic car accident. And, you know, this is your partner, this is your person, this is your spouse. But through and one of the things that really hit me was the fact that when she experienced years prior, you know, she had experienced almost losing her son. And the only thing she heard was that you need to forgive your father. Like that was what the voice of God kept telling her, forgive your father. And after she did, you know, the son miraculously like came back to life. Like he was on the brink of losing his life. And so she had experienced God being able to restore and heal. And on the other side of that, now her husband, losing her husband in such like an unexpected way. And sometimes we think that these types of moments can make you
walk away.
Should make you like question, like, wait, if you did this, why couldn't you do this over here? But then she has this message about unmovable faith. How her faith is unmovable. No matter what. And she knows that the same God is the same person who has a purpose for this, is the same person who has her, that she would not waver in her faith simply because she experienced something that was not based on her expectation. And
so good.
That to me is just
it's
like
so beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
And encouraging.
Yeah. It was an episode we like, you know, when there's some conversations you don't know you need until you have them.
She's so full of wisdom.
So
it's like you didn't want the episode to end because even the atmosphere was just so gentle.
Peace. It was like
a peace that it was even from the playlist. It was just like every song was meant to be. And I remember when she came in, she was like, what's her assistant's name? Brandon?
I think it was Brandon.
Brandon.
Yeah.
She was like, Brandon, I feel like I'm gonna cry. And he's like, why? I don't know. I just feel the presence in here. And we all felt it. Like it was just incredible. Oh my gosh. Yes. It was beautiful.
It was.
Yeah. And I think even throughout the episode, you know, she just spoke about like just the realities of grieving, right? So she didn't hold back on any of it. Reality. And there's a clip that I want us to take a look at.
I remember when he first passed, anything that had his scent, I was like, don't touch it. I kept the sheets on the bed for over a month and a half because I didn't want his scent to leave me. And I was a mess. I was just like, I ain't got nothing to give. I'm just gonna lay in this bed until he comes back again. And with that, you know, obviously my friends was like, okay, you've been laying on these sheets for about a good 6 weeks since I'm gonna need to get in the shower. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. But, you know, thank God for my circle, you know. But in the end of the day, everything that I've had to endure without Sean, everything, making major decisions, raising our son, being able to just handle business, now having everything that was on his desk on my desk, now being the head of the household, now being able to flush out my emotions and what I'm feeling and still be in tune with my 15-year-old that doesn't have days off. You know what I mean? All of that, I can't imagine how I got through it. I can't. But God has navigated me every single step of the way.
That clip, I mean, just one of the many powerful moments we had in that episode, because right there you see her again speaking about what she went through, not wanting to take the sheets off the bed, not wanting to get off the bed. And even through it all, she doesn't hide away from the pain. She doesn't hide away from the confusion, the difficulty, but then she tells you what was her anchor, that I would not have been able to do this if God did not help me navigate this season of my life. And what that really just hit me and what that spoke to me is how we experience another side of God through pain. It doesn't make him, it doesn't cause us to, it doesn't change the reality of him, but we actually experience something different, because I think about scriptures when the Bible says that he will comfort those who mourn. So there's a comfort that comes from God that we don't experience except through mourning. So there's sides of God that we experience through the different things that we experience in life, right? That he reveals different parts of his nature. And so I love that so much. And so I just want, I'm posing this to myself and to you both, what have you learned about God through some of the hardest moments in your life? And feel free to share.
I feel like I'll go just because you talked about the different sides. I feel like I feel like one of the hardest moments I've ever had in my life was like losing a relationship at the hands of betrayal. And it was just too long of a story to go into details, but it was attached to my faith community, right? And I feel like growing up in church, like I'm a PK, I know church, like, but I recognized in that moment that I didn't fully know God. And I feel like in the darkest place is where I met God. It's where I developed a relationship that anchored me through the pain and like through the disappointment and through the hurt and through the frustration. And I feel like there's a certain type of like, you can have like a relationship, like, how the Bible always says like the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it's because he's introducing himself as like who I was to the people before you. And it's usually in a moment where it's like, but now you're meeting me. It's usually at the first point of encounter with him face to face. And I feel like I knew Jesus through everybody else. I knew him through like going to church, serving in church, working in church. But it wasn't until in a moment where I couldn't bring anybody else or anything else into that space separate from who I was and what I did. And it's like, all I got is who you are.
Yeah.
And in that space is where I met him. It is the product of, I am the product of this moment right here is a product of that meeting face to face. And to your point, is like, no, it says he's near to the brokenhearted. I wouldn't have felt that nearness if I had never experienced the brokenheartedness.
Exactly.
And so it is that moment where it's like, the worst times of our lives sometimes are the only moments that bring us face to face with the Jesus we claim we already know.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment, I didn't know him in that level because I'd never experienced that amount of pain that I even needed to experience him in that way. And so it's like the same thing is like, I can't really articulate him as a healer if he's never had to heal me.
Exactly.
And so it's like, in order to be able to share Jesus and all the different aspects of who he is, we gotta walk through some things.
Yeah.
Because it's not authentic if I'm only telling you based off what I heard someone else say.
Yes.
No, I can stand firmly and say
That's right.
that he's a God who will heal you from depression and anxiety and disappointment and feeling like you don't have anything left because I've walked through that.
Yeah.
And I'm on the other side of it. And when you're having a moment, I can show up and be like, no, he's with you in it because he got me through it. And so I do absolutely wouldn't change a thing about the situation as bad as it was, because then I would have to change who I became.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Then it's my turn.
He
I'm
said,
like, oh
"Then it's
God. For me, I think it's just growing up and just like church hopping and just experiencing like a lot of church hurt. Brenda, why didn't you cry?
It's okay, Caitlin.
No,
It's what happens in the room.
You gotta cry.
You gotta let it out. Yeah, it's okay.
just experiencing so much church hurt has caused me to fall into a huge depression because I thought that's how you get to know God. Like, you got to go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. You got to go to Bible study. You got to be, you have to serve in a church and everything. And it's like, God, you see my heart. I'm showing up. But your people are not accepting of me.
Wow.
They're judging me.
Wow.
They are, you know how you meet people and they'll know there's something special in you. And they'll say, I'm going to pray that God helps you in this area. But it's like, you can help me.
Wow.
Why do you have to pray for God to tell you to help me?
Yeah.
When you know that you can help me.
Yeah.
And so it's just stuff like that. And then like experiencing in a church like with a lot of women, with the jealousy and the envy, that is real. And I didn't experience that hardcore before, but like even like going into like the culture thing, like light skin versus dark skin, that's been my whole life.
Wow.
Like I would go for certain things and I'll be like, oh, it's a whole black casting. But then I'll go for it and they'll be like, we don't want you. And it's like, why not? Like, I qualify for this. And then, so it just a lot within the church has hurt me and caused me to be in a huge depression, anxiety, like suicidal thoughts. So, one day God met me where I was, and it wasn't in church. And I thought I would meet him in church. I'm like, I'm going to all these churches trying to find the right church home. And he sent this girl to speak to me, and it was like, she was like, I feel like God's saying this, that, and the third, and you've been going here and here and here. And she read me like a book.
Wow.
And I was like, that's how I know that you're hearing from God, because there's stuff that like I haven't even told you. Like, you don't even know my name.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she just restored hope.
Wow.
And I was looking for the pastors to restore hope in me. And you're over here saying that you have to pray to make sure you're saying the right thing, or make sure that you'll connect me to the right people, or whatever it may be. And I was just like, you know what? God met me where I was. And I'm so happy because he saved me from doing a lot of things that I will not be here today.
Yeah.
So yeah, God has a way of loving you through it all, and he'll just meet you
wherever you are.
Yeah.
I love that.
Same here. And it's so I love that you just shared
that,
and
because that is
it's real, because
it's so real.
when you talk about, because I mean Brenda's story too is connected to church hurt. And even for me, like some betrayals that I've experienced, like in my adult life, that were some of the deepest, like that just hurt me, came from church folks.
I don't know why it's like that.
And I think it's really because, you know, the church is a place where
full of broken people.
It's
full of broken people.
Spiritual hospital for broken people.
Right.
And so the problem now is, you believe like, okay, if we're all seeking Jesus, right? Shouldn't this be the place we have the most grace for one another?
Most grace.
Right.
Shouldn't this be the place where we care, the love? But you have, and there is nothing that hurts than a broken person trying to wound you while trying to put Jesus on it.
It's terrible.
So it's like, I'm doing this in the name of Jesus.
Right. It's like you have to do.
So it's like, no, you're not. You're, and what you shared is also the reason why many people walk away from God.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, if this is what he looks like, I don't want no parts of this.
I'm good on that.
But the reality is, church is full of broken people, you know, and I love your story, because it just shows like when you say God met me where I was,
that's who
God
he
is like, at the end of the day,
baby, I'm after you.
Wherever you are, I'm after you. And even when you think about it, if I was Satan,
where I'm gonna be,
I am trying to cause like some serious pain and trauma in your life, I'm gonna look for willing vessels in the church, not
Yeah.
outside. Because outside, you're
Absolutely.
the expecting
You
that.
expect it.
Yeah.
You're the know, like, y'all gonna be trifling. Y'all gonna be
Right,
this.
right.
You're the expecting that. In the church, you're like, nah, this is the
Yeah.
place. Because even check it, in the Bible, the first demonic deliverance, the first time that a person was ever delivered from a demonic spirit,
The
first of all, is when
synagogue.
Jesus came on the scene, but it was at the church. It was
in
at the synagogue. That was the first, and everything about God is so intentional. But that shows you that through their brokenness, Satan is like, okay, I want to use you to hurt other people. And church hurt, it is a deep pain.
It
Right.
is.
But I would even want to just say this, and I want you both to chime in on this even before I share, because to really speak to people as well that have experienced church hurt, because sometimes it's so deep that people feel like there's no way to recover. But at the end of the day, like, we're after God.
Yeah.
And we're also after him to heal his people and give them a better perspective. And you both are the product of what people need also in the church, right? People, because when you experience something, you're like, but
Nope. Not on my watch.
now you can say, you know what? I'm going to be to someone else what I desire for them to be for me,
Yes.
right? Even for me as a pastor, one of the things that pulled me into pastoring was when God revealed his love for me. And I was like, God, I want everyone that I'm able to encounter to know that you are a God of love, that you
Yes.
love them in a way that does not make any human, any sense in our human reasoning or understanding. So I want you guys to just really speak to someone who's experienced church hurt.
I think for me, like, I feel like I'm the poster child for develop a relationship with God. And from the like smallest thing of like being around people who are of God, because I think what helped me not walk away from God in that moment is that I knew God, and I knew that in spite of this person being a man of God, he is not reflecting the character of God.
Yeah.
And so there was this, I always had this thing where I didn't blame God. Now, was I mad with him? Absolutely. Upset and feeling very much like, my heart. I'm for the church. Like, I'm here. This is my
Right.
job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm here. And the nerve, like, come on, Lord, not
Yeah.
me. And so there is also like this sense of like, no, when I choose to follow Jesus, like, we go through moments that are gonna hurt us and cause us pain. But I think the importance of having a relationship with Jesus, and I love Caitlin's story because Jesus, like, God didn't only just meet her with a stranger, but it was also a woman.
Yes.
And I feel like in that moment, he's also like giving you another
Yes.
perspective, like, no, this is my character, not just of me, but also of my people and
That's
also
right.
of women. So he still gave you what you needed. And I think like that in that moment, like, not only did you receive what you were looking for, but it was also him showing you who he was.
Yeah.
That's
And you being
right.
able to recognize his heart. And I feel like you got to like dig for that in moments where you're hurt in the church because it is imperfect people. And one thing that helped me in like my journey back was I was at a service at 1 and Stephanie was preaching about something completely different. And at the end of the message, she just started talking about forgiveness. And I was like, get me out of here. And she goes, no one would hurt you from a place of wholeness. It is their
Oh, yes.
brokenness that would hurt you.
Yeah.
And I needed someone to stamp the level of empathy that I had for people who caused me pain, because I was almost angry with myself that I wasn't angry and upset with them. And I didn't have words or language to articulate why I was forgiving them. And for you to say that, it like gave language to like how I was walking it out, but I also needed to be able to continue to walk it out and to understand that nobody would intentionally cause me hurt and pain.
That's right.
Even if they thought they were doing that, it's still coming from a place of brokenness. It's a
Yeah.
place in them that hasn't been healed, which is probably a byproduct of someone hurting them,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
creates this ripple
The
effect if
same
I don't deal
cycle.
with it. And so I feel like that is what I would share with someone is like, if you're struggling to let that go, because what it does is create a wedge between you and God. Because if I'm like, I'm never going back to church. Well, he established the church and we are the church, and there is community. We weren't born to do life alone. There is something we need from the church, and it creates this consistent wedge because I'm recognizing the people that are in my community that witnessed what I went through walk away from God because of my situation. And so there is this space or like, we gotta, again, like when we make it out of it, we have to be the example, and we have to be the light, but also recognizing that, like, I gotta provide people with grace, like the same grace that I need, and recognize that we are all imperfect people showing up to church, but serving a perfect God. And the more we are after him, the more we become like him, and then we can handle those situations better.
That's right.
You pretty much covered everything. I would just add that you just need to discover who he is on your own, because sometimes so many people can just tell you who he is and what he'll do and all this, and it's just like, get in the good old Bible. Stop turning on sermons.
That's real.
Stop hearing it from your favorite pastors, what the Bible says. That's great. You constantly want to feed your faith, but get to know him personally. And then also be aware of just because it's a church doesn't mean that you belong there. Doesn't mean that God is going to call you
That's good.
to that one. So I know for me at that time, when it's like you're trying to find a church home, you can go to, this one has the word church in it. This one has the word Sabbath in it. This one has this. This one says this. Like, I'm going to go to all these churches, but it's like, no, you can save yourself from a lot of church hurt if you just take your time, step back, and pray, like, God, where is it that you want me? Show me the path. Show me the way. So get to know him for yourself.
And I think one thing that Caitlin's story highlights in like this entire discussion is that whatever you build your relationship with Jesus through, when that falls apart, if your relationship that's the foundation of your relationship with Jesus, it will fall apart.
It will fall apart.
It won't last. So if I like meet Jesus through this dude I'm talking to, if me and the dude fall apart and my relationship was rooted in dude,
you said your Bible went with him.
You said it all went with. And so I love that you said, like, stop watching sermons. Not that they're not good, but if I don't know Jesus apart from that thing, when that thing falls apart or it fails me or it disappoints me, if I don't know Jesus outside of that, he going right with that thing.
Because at the end of the day, preachers are preaching from their place of relationship.
Yes.
So they're sharing from the place of their intimacy with God. So when you also have your intimacy, because again, if the preacher one day preaches a message you don't like, or there's news about them that you don't like,
you said
I'm
Jesus
not gonna
is
show it no more.
You said, who is Jesus?
I knew this was a lie. He said, who is this man? Never met him.
No, that's real.
So no, that's so good. And I think even just talking about that, even when we recognize, like, broken people are like anything that comes out of anything that we that has the ability to hurt us, has the ability to wound us, cause offense, all of that, it comes from a person's brokenness. And there are times that it's harder sometimes to forgive because of maybe how it happened. Because even for me, one of the hardest things that for me in my life was not having my father, right? And knowing that he was murdered at the hand of my uncle. But as I get older, some of the pain that I was like, that didn't even, I forgave him very quickly as a kid. And that could also be maybe I didn't get to experience my dad.
Right.
So I didn't feel like, he took away, the experience I had with my dad. He did rob me from moments that I could be sharing my dad now, right? He did rob me from, whether it's like now, engaged and getting married, like my dad wouldn't be there. But at the end of the day, even if my dad was alive, I don't know if the Lord would have called him prior to this time, right? But talking about like church hurt, or even hurt that comes from people who you're like, you should know better.
Right.
You should know better. There was a betrayal I experienced recently, and it hurt. It was just because in my mind I'm like, not you. Not you. So I can understand why sometimes it just feels like you do not want to let that, you don't want to forgive that person. You don't want to let it go. And for me, in that moment of that pain and and just the offense that I had, because I'm like, wait, what? I saw God in such a beautiful way, a God that, when we talked about unconditional love of God in Jeannie Mai's episode, for me was a God that was like, Stephanie, even when you don't have perfect moments, right? Even when you don't have, because forgiveness is easy for me, you know?
It is.
It's love is
It's
easy
really
for me.
easy for her.
So in that moment where I felt like I wanted this person to feel pain, like it was to the point that the betrayal, it kind
hit
of
your heart.
It hit my heart different, and the bitterness it put in me, I was like, I want you to suffer, and I didn't want to say it because I'm like, no,
Like,
you know,
Stephanie.
yeah, it's not.
She's Colombiana.
This doesn't seem
It's
like
not me. It's not me at all.
Yeah.
But that moment, I had all the thoughts in my mind. I said, if I could,
I know.
where is Santa?
No.
I have a real wish, you know?
No.
Weak.
But then recognizing that God was like, Stephanie, right now you tripping, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to the dark side. But he was telling me, he's like, you know what? But I'm here with you. Be patient with yourself. Feel what you feel.
Have the moment.
Yes.
Have the moment. But
Pray.
know the truth at the end of the day.
Yes.
Anchor yourself in the truth that this person, yes, you think that they should know better, but they're still human. They're broken. This is still brokenness speaking.
Yeah.
And it was like, remember what I taught you. This is still their brokenness,
Yeah.
you know? And it really changed my heart, because then any moment that I would think of, like, you know how sometimes the worst thing is that you start replaying things in your mind.
Meditating.
That's
on
the
it.
worst. You're meditating on
Dang,
it.
I could have said this.
Yeah,
I could
I could have done this.
And plan it over.
Like,
Like,
oh, man.
call today. Like,
Yeah,
call right
call me
now.
right
You
now.
did this in front of all your people. I should have did this. Like,
So
oh
you
my
start
gosh.
replaying that
Yeah.
thing, but then I had to switch it, you know. So if I replay it, I start praying for her,
Yeah.
whether I feel it or not. And that's what I would even tell someone, that you're dealing with hurt that came from Christians.
Yep. Pray
In
for
the
them.
moment, pray for them. Even
the
the
best
Bible
thing you
says
can
pray
do.
for your enemies, because it is almost impossible
Yeah.
to pray for someone's good
With malice in your heart.
with anger, malice, bitterness in your heart. It's almost like what you're doing, it's countering that. It's like, you know what, it's uprooting that little by little.
Yep.
So in the moments that I would want to start replaying this, I would just start praying for her, you know, her healing, her wholeness, her this, her that, because in my mind I'm like, what happened? But it brings healing, you know. And I think let's feel the feels, right? Feel
the
what you want to
feels,
feel,
yeah.
like allow yourself to experience the emotion, but at the end of the day, rest in truth. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how do not I think it's like, do not go, or do not let the night fall on your anger.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Right?
don't let the
So
sun-
Jesus is like, hey, it's daytime. You
Feel it.
upset, you disappointed.
But don't you go to sleep.
Feel it, but don't go to sleep
With that.
with a lie.
Yep. Because it'll fester.
At the end of the day, thinking that this person intentionally hurt you, it's a lie.
It is.
Their brokenness was revealed, and that's what broke you. That's what hurt you.
Yeah.
And when you know the truth, you stop the cycle. Because if I allow your brokenness to break me, then I'm going to do that to someone else, knowingly or unknowingly, whether it's through my walls, like if I just start putting a wall up for people, and the same people that now need to pull from you, there's no access to your heart anymore, you know, or intentionally, I'm like, you know, ain't nobody,
No,
ain't nobody worth this.
No,
you know?
that's real. And I'm glad you said that, because that's always like the advice I give, like first starting with myself, is like, I don't put expectations or trust in man. And because that was what was happening. I was like, I was forgiving them, but I had already created this thing in my head, like, I'm good on relationships, friendships after this, because I never want to experience that level of pain again, which is usually what we do. It's like, okay, cool, bet. You got me once, won't get me again. Walls up.
Exactly.
And entering in spaces where I'm supposed to be connecting with people, and I'm like,
walk away.
Yeah, cool. And so what I've learned is like, you're right. This person has the capacity and the ability to hurt me. And so I'm not putting my trust in them. I'm putting my trust in God. And I'm trusting that he'll lead me into right situations.
That's
and even if
right.
I'm in the wrong one, I can trust that he'll cover me and he'll guard me, because he did it before. And we have to also embrace the level of what exposure and hurt, the covering that's in that. Because you could have kept journeying and through something that wasn't right for you. If that had have worked out and that woman had have prayed for you, that could have been a church that you didn't need to be in.
That's right.
And so there is a level of covering that comes with the hurt. There is a level of like, dang, this disappointed me, but what could have happened had I stayed? What could have happened if it would have went right? If it would have went the way that I anticipated it. Yeah. And so what that taught me is like, you're right. I shouldn't put expectations and trust on people because they're going to always fail me. We're human. But there is a God who doesn't fail. He doesn't change. He is consistent. He does remain the same. Yeah. And he's solid. He's solid. Real solid. He's solid.
Solid. I know. I started singing.
No, and
Tasha has that beautiful song.
I'm weak. And so, like, that is what I've learned is like, he's the only thing that sustains and he's the only thing that is sure. And so, even in relationships and building them, it's like, God, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I trust that you got me.
That's right.
And lean on that.
I like how you said, make sure that you're praying for them, whoever hurt you. Mm-hmm. That took me a long time to do. Because I'm like, I'm not praying for this person. I just don't want to. Like, my prayer for them, I used to think that my prayers, they don't go to God. Like, I'm like, I'm not about to pray for this person. Like, this person is evil. Like, it's not. And so I had to start praying for my heart first. And so I was like,
That's
God,
good.
my heart, I know you see it. It is ugly. It's filled with bitterness, anger, evil. Like, I was thinking thoughts that I was like, God, wait, I'm not thinking this thought. God, I love you. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Like, no, this is not me. This is really the enemy now. Okay. But pray over your heart. Guard your heart. Especially like during these tough times where you're like experiencing church hurt. Like, be careful of who you're telling and what they're feeding back to you. Because you could be telling the wrong person, be like, see, this is why I don't go to church. Because this, that, and the third is happening. But it's like, there is a church out there that will help you, that will love you, that will show you the truth. I lost my train of thought.
But that's it right there, though.
No,
but that's
that is good. And it is. And the more you pray for them and you like, yeah, Lord. Because it starts off like,
I know it do.
And then it shifts it. And it's like you're praying for God to change them and he'll change you.
Yeah.
Happens every
it's
time.
a beautiful process. Like, it doesn't feel beautiful.
No.
It doesn't.
But it's a beautiful process.
Yeah, because you see where you started off. Like, as this hard, bitter person.
Yeah.
And you didn't start off like that. You started gentle. Like, you had joy. Like, you wanted to help people and all this. You didn't have all these walls up. Like, people had access to you. Like, you were able to pour into people as people were pouring back into you. And then you just go to all this hurt and you're like, whoop.
And I think it's important to even notice, what is the enemy really after? Because he's not just after.
It's so much bigger than that moment. It's so much bigger
because we experience people experience the love of God through us, through compassion, through our compassion, through our joy, through our openness, and even when you read scriptures like, and Jesus had compassion on them, and through compassion, there were miracles that happened. And so there is this, there's always this hidden ingredient for miracles. There's always this hidden ingredient for the presence of God to show up in unlikely moments. And that's really compassion. That's really love. Even when Paul said, above all, pursue love, right? And so when the enemy plants these seeds, whether it's in our childhood, whether it's in moments in our adulthood, whether it's in church, when he plants these seeds, because he's not just after you to be in pain.
No.
He's after that ingredient. Like, no, I'm after your heart. The same way God is after our heart, he's after your heart.
Because if he can shift that, it derails everything.
Shift
it derails everything.
Nothing can work.
Right.
You can't flow properly. You even the ability to hear from God is not the same because
it affects every bit of your life.
And that's why in the wisdom of God, he says, pray for your enemies.
Right. And there's people attached to you that you have to save along your journey. And if you give up, the people that
all of
just
them,
everybody.
So it's not holding on to that pain. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it
because the enemy is after your heart and God is after your heart. Who are you gonna give the trophy to? So I love this conversation.
So good, so good, and so necessary.
Yeah,
so good.